Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair, and thank you everybody for joining me here again today. Inshallah, today's video will be beneficial for both you and for me. Upon clicking on my video, I'm sure you must have realized exactly what I'm going to talk about today. And indeed, it is a very, very serious topic. It is something that is discussed, but not discussed enough. And I think usually when people talk about this, at the end of the conversation, you left drained and you realize you just basically didn't get any solution out of it. This is not a how to do video. I think number one, because marriage is such a complex situation, such a complex relationship, that you can't do a how to do on it, because it doesn't always, work out that one formula fits every situation. But these are things that I think that you can start thinking about and applying to your relationship. God forbid if you or somebody you know are going through a difficult time in their marriage. Try these things, inshallah. May Allah help you, and you might even be able to save a marriage, inshallah. So the first thing that I wanted to mention is a lot of times when people are going through difficult issues, they become so desperate and so frustrated that they mostly just turn to anybody for advice. And I think both situations are very, very dangerous. Number one, that you turn to anyone, or that you don't turn to anyone at all. So I think it's very, very important that where you get your advice from, and when you do get that advice, how you execute it. So it's not necessary that that advice that you're getting is from a reliable source. If you apply it to your life, well, everything's going to be fine, your spouse will be making you breakfast the next morning. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes the person who you are getting advice from does have your best interest at heart, but maybe the advice they are giving you just does not fit your situation. So there's two things that I would say you want to be careful about. Number one is where you get your advice from, and number two is how you execute it. Where you get your advice from is also very important to think about, because there are a lot of people out there who might even find joy in hearing you are in a bad situation. So be careful. Whatever advice you get, think and rethink about it, and think to yourself, if I apply this, because I think, anyone you're getting advice from, unless it's from your spouse's family directly or someone who's known them for a very, very long time, you want to be careful, because you, in that situation, unless it's a family member, know your spouse better than most probably the person you're getting advice from. So you would be able to understand that if I add this to the situation, plus my spouse's attitude towards everything, life, or just their ideology in general, if I add this, will this be beneficial, or maybe it just might make things worse? So think and rethink before you do something like that. Another thing that I wanted to mention is fighting and arguments. We've all been through them, we all have them, we all do them. But there's one thing that I wanted you to be very careful about and think about, and often I think, not necessarily always, but women tend to have sharper tongues, and we use very, very harsh comments and very, very harsh words and phrases that sometimes leave scars, on the other person. And what happens is those things which used to be like wounds, they heal and they become scars, and those scars become wounds again when the next fight or argument happens. So what you want to be careful of, what you want to think about is, okay, you're having an argument, you're having a fight with your spouse regarding whatever issue it might be. Make sure that you have a fight or an argument that you can come back from. So it should be a fight or an argument that you're not scarring each other. You're saying what you need to. You might disagree on the issue, and both of you, are giving your points. It might even get a little bit loud. But be careful to have fights where at the end of the fight, you're still going to be there for each other. So that's something very, very important. Fighting is not an issue. Arguments are not issues. Those are things that are just going to be a part of marriage. But you need to have healthy ones. Ones that maybe, inshallah, at the end of the argument or the fight, you actually do find a solution. But sometimes a lot of people have very difficult spouses who don't open up, and they're just like, okay, whatever happened, just happened, leave it like that. Whereas the next person, the other person, the other party, is still waiting and waiting and waiting, and they need some kind of closure or some kind of answer as to what's going on. So that's something that you want to also, really, really think about. Have fights that you can come back from, not fights that are, God forbid, just pushing you further away from each other. I think having patience Patience is key. I think patience is key to anything in life, whether it's a relationship, whether it's your job, whether it's just anything. The more patience you have, I think the better off you are. Have patience, and I think that the amount of patience that people used to have before, the level has really, really decreased. Even myself as a person, I don't have a very high patience level. I'm learning, inshallah, on the way along, and inshallah we will learn together, how to be more patient. Upon looking through a lot of videos, watching a lot of videos on YouTube, I realized that either there is a side that tells you if you're going through a difficult relationship, have sabr, be patient, right? And then you hear those people who tell you if you're going through a difficult relationship, you're having problems in your marriage, get out. Life is too short, get out. Why are you wasting your life, on someone who just doesn't care about you? But I think that both of those scenarios are quite harsh. I think that it's better and it's healthier to come, to a middle path, basically, where, you can understand, exactly what you need to do. Having too much sabr, having too much patience in a situation where you might actually be in danger, God forbid, in a way, would not be very good for you. And I think that is one of, the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a doorway, God forbid, if things just do not work out, of talaq, which is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not very happy with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like that. But because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew the situations that we would be in, a doorway was given to us that if things get too bad, get out. Okay? But that should indeed, I would say, be the very, very last option. And I think, right at the end, God forbid, if things do become so bad that you just cannot bear it anymore, then a decision might need to be taken, God forbid. And if you are taking that decision, God forbid, I think for myself, I'm just talking about myself, I believe that since whenever, I had a child, my self-interest would be pushed back. And that's not something that someone asked me to do. It's not something that I was forced to do. It's something that I've done with my own free will. I think it's just, a love that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates in a mother's heart, that a mother is willing to go through, basically anything. That doesn't mean you stay in an unhealthy marriage, God forbid, that's affecting you and your children. But what I am saying is that when you feel like things are just at the end and you can't do anymore and you're just finished, add another 100%. Like, you've given your 100%. My advice would be something that I plan to do, inshallah, God forbid, if I'm ever afflicted with, that kind of problem at a high level. I say, give whatever you have. Give an extra 100%. And when 200% is out and you're completely exhausted and you have given whatever strength Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you to try and save that relationship, then if you need to open the door and move out, wallahi, Allah knows best. So before you make that decision, definitely think about the people who are involved in your life, your children, your parents, other people who might be affected by that kind of decision. And in the end, if you weigh both the odds and you say, well, regardless of what issues I might have, I think I'm better off in this way, thinking of it in a rational way, thinking of this as a progress rather than something being like a revenge. God forbid, I need to, do this because I'm angry with my spouse and I need revenge. And one thing that I would like to say that a lot of us do wrong is compete. We tend to compete with our spouses. What we do is we see, okay, our spouse is fighting us, they're hurting us, whatever. No, we're going to do the same. And having competition in a marriage, I think, is very, very deadly for marriage. So don't do that. Pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you strength and help you through the difficulties that you have in any kind of relationship. May Allah help us through this journey. May Allah give us strength and strengthen our relationships with a lot of love. May you have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.